After defeating King Robb Stark and massacring the Northern Army, Tywin Lannister unveiled the creation of 2 new Valyrian steel swords, reforged from the ancient blade ice passed down through the Stark line. The first he presented to his son Jaime, hoping he was at last ready to take his place as heir to Casterly Rock. Yet while Jaime accepted the sword, he refused the offer, wanting to stay true to his vows as a Kingsguard. The second sword was later given to King Joffrey Baratheon, who named it Widow's Wail. Representing his brother Doran, the Prince of Dorne, Oberyn Martell arrived in the capital for the king's wedding, though in truth, he came to get justice for his sister Elia Martell and her children, who died during the Lannister sack of King's Landing at the end of Robert's Rebellion. While many knew the Mountain Gregor Clegane was responsible, Oberyn believed the order was given by Tywin Lannister, and so wanted them both to suffer. Elsewhere in the capital, Cersei reunited with Jaime and gifted him a golden hand, though their relationship was no longer as close as they'd once been. In order to train with his other hand, Jaime was paired with Tyrion's sellsword Bronn, though it was soon clear he'd never be the fighter he was. Tyrion, meanwhile, learned that Cersei knew about his lover, Shae, and was forced to end their relationship harshly so she would agree to leave the city. After Sansa saved the life of the drunken knight Ser Dontos Hollard, he met with her in secret and promised to help her escape the city, even gifting her a necklace he claimed was a family heirloom. She then accompanied her husband to the wedding of Joffrey Baratheon and Margaery Tyrell, where the king got drunk and ordered Tyrion to pour his wine. Yet as the king made a spectacle of himself, acting like a drunken fool, he suddenly started choking and collapsed to the ground where he died. In his final moments, Joffrey pointed in the direction of Tyrion, who was examining the wine cup, causing Cersei to lash out in anger, ordering the arrest of her brother. Although his wife Sansa was also a suspect, she disappeared with Dontos Hollard as the king died, and was brought onto the ship of Peter Baelish, who was revealed to be behind both Joffrey's death and her escape. He then killed the drunken knight to eliminate an unreliable witness, and sailed for the Vale. With the king dead and Tyrion arrested, young Tommen Baratheon sat the Iron Throne, though true power remained with his grandfather, the Hand, Tywin Lannister, who now had to organize a trial for his son, with himself, Lord Mace Tyrell, and Oberyn Martell acting as judges. Meanwhile, in the hopes of fulfilling his vow to Catelyn Stark, Jaime gave his Valyrian steel sword to Brienne of Tarth, who named it Oathkeeper, along with new armor, fresh supplies, 2 horses, and a squire, Podrick Payne, formerly assigned to Tyrion Lannister. Though the boy had limited fighting skills, he was fiercely dedicated, being the only person in the city to remain loyal to Tyrion the entire time he was in prison, even turning down a knighthood from Cersei when he refused to testify in the trial. Brienne then set off to search for Sansa and Arya, while Jaime remained, trying to repair his ever-worsening relationship with Cersei, who had her own concerns, worried about the growing influence of the Tyrells, only for her father to explain they needed the financial support of the Reach, since the gold mines of Casterly Rock ran dry 3 years earlier. Growing furious over her diminishing role in the capital and betrothal to Loras Tyrell, Cersei lost her temper and revealed the truth about her and Jaime, though Tywin remained in denial, claiming it wasn't true. However, Cersei's concerns over the Tyrells proved well-founded, as Olenna soon revealed to Margaery she was behind the king's assassination, thereby leaving her granddaughter to seduce and marry young Tommen, a much kinder and more malleable husband to manipulate. As the trial of Tyrion Lannister began, many were eager to win favor with Cersei by testifying against him, including his former lover Shae, causing him to lash out and yell about his hatred for the people and city, making his situation even worse. Although Jaime worked out a deal with Tywin to send his brother to the Night's Watch, Tyrion was so angry that he dismissed the entire ordeal and demanded a trial by combat. With Cersei choosing the Mountain Gregor Clegane as her champion, Tyrion was represented by the Viper Oberyn Martell, who wanted to exact vengeance against the man that murdered his sister. And while Oberyn nearly won the duel, he grew overconfident and tried to exact a confession from the Mountain as he died, allowing the wounded man to take advantage of the distraction and crush his enemy's head. With Oberyn killed, Tyrion was condemned to die until Jaime and Varys orchestrated his escape, with the Spider's involvement forcing him into exile as well. Yet before escaping, Tyrion made his way through the secret tunnels of the Red Keep towards his father's bedroom, where he found Shae and strangled her to death, only to then murder his father with a crossbow as he sat on the privy. Although Gregor Clegane won his battle with Oberyn, he received several wounds from a weapon covered in manticore venom, leaving him on the edge of death. However, the former Maester Qyburn was authorized by Cersei to perform experiments that would ensure his survival and preserve his strength, though he would be drastically changed. After escaping King's Landing, Peter Baelish brought Sansa to her Aunt Lysa in the Eyrie, high in the mountains of the Vale, having her pose as his niece Elaine. Though Lysa was welcoming, she was also mentally unstable, and so obsessed with Peter Baelish, she poisoned her own husband, Jon Arryn, and framed the Lannisters on his orders. Though they were quickly married after he arrived, she grew increasingly jealous and suspicious of Sansa, threatening to throw her from the Moon Door, until Littlefinger intervened and pushed Lysa to her death, allowing power in the Vale to transfer to her sickly young son Robin Arryn, who was heavily under the influence of his stepfather Peter Baelish. When the Lords of the Vale gathered to investigate Lysa's death, Sansa revealed her true identity but lied to defend Peter Baelish, reasoning that she was better off with someone she knew over strangers. Seeing the potential in her, Littlefinger started to train her as an ally and partner, teaching her about politics, psychology, and civil administration. Escaping the massacre of the Red Wedding in the Twins, the Hound, Sandor Clegane, took his captive Arya Stark through the Riverlands, in the hopes of ransoming her to Lysa Arryn in the Vale. Stopping at a tavern, they encountered the soldiers of the Hound's brother, Gregor Clegane, who once captured Arya, stole her sword, and killed her friend. After a tense discussion, a fight erupted, with the Hound killing 3 men, while Arya joined in, killing 2 of her own, and recapturing her sword Needle. Unfortunately, by the time they reached the Vale, Lysa Arryn was already dead, eliminating yet another opportunity for the Hound to collect a ransom. As all this occurred, Brienne of Tarth and Podrick Payne reached the inn at the crossroads, where Arya's friend Hot Pie pointed them in her direction. When Brienne at last found the girl, the Hound saw she wielded a Lannister sword, and so a battle erupted between them. Though Brienne was victorious, Arya disappeared from sight, only to return after they departed, in order to rob the gravely injured Sandor Clegane, then leaving him to die. Making her way to a port, she found a sailor from Braavos, presenting the coin given to her by Jaqen H'ghar, before speaking the phrase Valar Morghulis. Acting as a secret code for the Braavosi, the sailor immediately offered her free passage across the sea, out of respect for the mysterious House of Black and White, from where the coin originated, a religious temple that worshipped death and trained faceless men to be assassins. Following their defeat in the Battle of the Blackwater, Stannis retreated to Dragonstone to rebuild his armies, and so Melisandre began to make more human sacrifices to win the favor of R'hllor. Angry over her barbarism, Davos convinced Stannis to try a more practical approach by going to the Iron Bank of Braavos, where they received a loan, allowing them to raise new armies and once again hire the pirate fleet of Salador Saan. In the Dreadfort, Ramsay Snow welcomed his old friend Locke and Lady Walda Frey, the new wife of his father Roose Bolton. Though the Boltons now ruled over the north, much of their lands were still held by the Ironborn, while their own banner lords hated them for betraying the Starks. In order to bring their troops north from the Riverlands, they required possession of Moat Cailin, currently held by the Ironborn, and so Roose planned to trade their hostage Theon Greyjoy for the holding. But his plans were now ruined because Ramsay tortured Theon and made him a eunuch, breaking him until he responded to the name Reek, thereby eliminating his value as a prisoner. To make up for this failure, Roose ordered Ramsay to take Theon and an army to Moat Cailin to capture it by any means necessary, further incentivizing him by offering to legitimize his bastard son as a Bolton, thereby making him the heir to the north. Roose also sent Locke on a separate mission to join the Night's Watch, where he was ordered to meet Jon Snow and hopefully learn the whereabouts of Bran and Rickon Stark in order to eliminate them as rivals to the lordship of Winterfell. Though his sister Yara broke into the Dreadfort to rescue him, Theon was so traumatized by the torture he endured, he refused to escape and voluntarily stayed behind with Ramsay. He then helped his master capture Moat Cailin by posing as his old self Theon Greyjoy and negotiating a deal for the Ironborn to surrender. Despite promising to spare them, Ramsay killed every one of them before meeting his father and finally accomplishing his lifelong dream of being legitimized as a Bolton. After infiltrating and betraying the Free Folk, Jon Snow returned to Castle Black to recover from his injuries and report on the enemy, explaining that he killed Qhorin Halfhand under orders so he would be accepted into the Wildling camp. Alliser Thorne and his allies on the Leadership Council accused Jon of treason and might have arrested him, if not for the old maester Aemon Targaryen, who believed his story and spoke on his behalf. Once again accepted as a Black Brother, Jon organized a volunteer war party to attack Craster's Keep and eliminate the traitors who killed Lord Commander Mormont, both for justice's sake and to stop them from divulging Night's Watch secrets to Mance Rayder's army. joined by a number of brothers, including the new recruit, Locke. They killed their enemies at Craster's Keep, freed the women and children held as captives, and reunited with the direwolf Ghost, who'd been missing for some time. After the battle, Jon and the other survivors burned the keep and returned to Castle Black, where they soon learned the wildlings south of the wall were attacking nearby villages and farms. Though Jon and his friends wanted to go help their neighbors, they were too few to risk leaving their position, and so prepared to defend from an attack both north and south of the wall. Having survived the attack on Molestown, Gilly and her baby returned to Castle Black, where a relieved Sam provided shelter and promised to never leave them again. The Battle of Castle Black then erupted as the Night's Watch was attacked in the south by the Wildlings under Tormund Giantsbane and the Magnar of the Fen, while in the north they faced Mance Rayder's first wave of warriors attempting to breach and scale the wall, including 2 giants and a mammoth. Engaging in a vicious fight, Sir Alliser Thorne was injured early on, leaving Jon Snow to take command and lead the Night's Watch to victory. Unfortunately, when it was over, there were many dead on both sides, including the 2 giants, the Wildling Ygritte and the Magnar of the Fen, as well as the Night's Watch brothers, Grenn and Pip. Barely living through the night, Jon Snow knew they would not survive another attack, and so went on his own into the enemy camp to negotiate a peace with Mance Rayder, and if that was not possible, attempt to assassinate the Wildling leader. Yet their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Stannis Baratheon and his armies, who sailed north from Dragonstone to answer the Night's Watch call for reinforcements, in order to prove to the realm he was the rightful king. After being introduced to Jon Snow, he arrested Mance Rayder and many other wildlings, while leaving the rest to scatter and flee into the far north. Beyond the wall, Bran Stark continued his journey to find the Three-Eyed Raven, alongside Meera and Jojen Reed, his servant Hodor, and the direwolf Summer. Throughout the journey, he continued to practice his warging abilities, and had visions by touching heart trees, hearing a voice that summoned him further north. Unfortunately, they soon found their way to Craster's Keep, where they were captured by the Night's Watch traders. However, when Jon Snow and his companions arrived, it was Locke who discovered Bran and the others, attempting to kidnap the boy as part of his mission from the Boltons. To stop him, Bran warged into Hodor and snapped his neck before trying to get Jon Snow's attention, only for Jojen to stop him, saying they must leave unnoticed, or else his brother would try to prevent them from continuing their mission. After a long and harrowing journey, they at last reached the cave of the Three-Eyed Raven, but were immediately attacked by an army of undead wights trying to stop them. Though Jojen died in the battle, one of the last children of the forest emerged from the cave to help bring them inside, where a magical spell protected them. Bran then met an elderly man sitting amongst weirwood trees, revealing himself to be the Three-Eyed Raven, who was waiting to train Bran as his replacement. Far to the east, as Daenerys Targaryen marched with her Unsullied and Freedmen armies to capture Meereen and complete the conquest of Slaver's Bay, she was greeted by 163 slave children crucified along her path, meant as a warning against her approach. Enraged by what she saw, she ordered them taken down and buried, but not before personally looking upon the face of everyone. Laying siege to the city, the champion of Meereen came out of their gates to issue a challenge, which was answered by Daario Naharis, who won a quick victory. Daenerys then yelled out to the slaves attending their masters atop the walls of the city, asking them to revolt, before catapulting the broken chains and collars of other freed slaves to inspire them. In order to further encourage an uprising, Grey Worm and his Unsullied infiltrated the city through the sewer system, bringing weapons to arm the slaves. After her victory, Daenerys randomly selected 163 of the Great Masters and crucified them in retaliation for what they did to those children. Having conquered all 3 major cities of Slaver's Bay, Daenerys did what none thought possible, yet her victory was short-lived, soon learning that the Wise Masters overthrew the government left behind in Yunkai and once again ruled the city, while a butcher named Cleon did the same in Astapor, naming himself king. Though she now had the opportunity to sail to Westeros with 8,000 Unsullied and 2,000 second sons, Daenerys instead chose to remain and became Queen of Meereen, both so she might learn to rule, and to prevent the city from suffering the same fate as the others. Unfortunately, the profound changes she implemented to their society came with many complications, learning that some of her people, especially the elderly, were happier as slaves, and wished to sell themselves back into servitude. She also learned that not all the Great Masters were alike, as Hizdahr zo Lorak went before her to ask for the body of his father, one of the men she crucified, claiming that he had no part in the killings, and had actually spoke out against them. Impressed by the man, Daenerys named Hizdar her ambassador to the Old Masters. The situation then grew worse when the Queen was given a message from the hand of the King Tywin Lannister, in which he revealed that Jorah Mormont was originally working as a spy for the court of Robert Baratheon. Enraged by this betrayal, she exiled him from the city. In addition to all the challenges she was facing and the loss of her most trusted ally, she also had to deal with the growing problem of her dragons, when it was discovered Drogon burned a little girl to death while on the hunt for food. Though Drogon had flown off, Dany went against her own instincts as a mother to lock up Viserion and Rhaegal in an underground tomb, in the hopes of limiting the possibility of another innocent person being hurt. Love Game of Thrones? Then be sure to check out the new book, The Thrones Effect, written by a number of respected A Song of Ice and Fire YouTubers, including GOT Academy, Because Geek, Secrets of the Citadel, Grey Area, Ideas of Ice and Fire, History of Westeros, and Smokescreen, with Chapter 5, titled Eye of the Beholder, written by CivilizationEx, exploring the various ways the characters and story can be interpreted, as well as how the audience reacted to their decisions. If interested, click on the link in the description box below, where The Thrones Effect is available as a physical copy, ebook, and audiobook. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Belligerent Man, Checo the Clever, The Smiling Cow, and Johannes the Juvenile. If you'd like to help CivilizationEx, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and click on the links to see more.